in the studio, we have Ms. Paula Foster, author and founder of Fostering Hearts Foundation, syndrome, violence against men, and so much more. So I urge you to listen closely today. As always, we've got trending topics to discuss, research to dish, and of course, my weekly balance challenge. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Live Exchange.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, and father of 5. I'm also an expert on drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids, and there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org.
And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ed Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
Your health is at stake. Diabetes.
Diabetes, cancer, heart disease? Yeah, right. I'm too young to worry about all of that. Or am I? Millions of Americans are being diagnosed younger and younger each year. I guess it's really no surprise with how much our lifestyles have changed. More fried fast foods, extreme stress from work. 176 million people in North America consume unhealthy drinks. I know I do. Who could be next? My brother? My sister? Me? I think it's time to make a difference, and so should you. Extreme X2O alkaline water, designed to cleanse your body with just 2 simple steps: shake and wait. Not only will it help clean your kidneys, liver, and intestines, but it also helps with weight loss and anti-aging. Sign me up today. AbundantLifeMovement.com. You know, I better go call my sister to let her know about this. You should really tell a friend too, because is it really gonna kill you to shake and wait?
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Y'all need anything else?
Sensation Station Network.
All right. Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and we are talking about domestic violence and how to dismantle it and what can be done. We need all of the information we can get so we can really understand it, how it starts, how to end it, all of that. I have 2 guests here, and first I'm going to introduce our guests on the phone. Calling us from Colorado, we have Jenn Doe. Jenn Doe has over 5 years of experience working in the violence prevention field and currently works as a trainer for the Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance. Previously, Jenn coordinated peer education programs at the high school and college levels and provided training and education related to interpersonal violence to a variety of audiences. She also served for just over a year as the coordinator for the Denver Metro Domestic Violence Fatality Review Committee, and is especially passionate about the prevention of intimate partner violence. Jenn is also a certified instructor through Fast Defense and has been teaching self-defense classes since 2014. She earned her master's in public administration at CU Denver with a concentration in the program on domestic violence. Thank you for joining us, Jenn. Welcome.
Thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to be here.
Yes, it's so great to have you. And I'm also going to introduce our guest who's here in studio, and this is Paula Foster. Paula has been here before. She came here almost exactly a year ago. When I looked at the calendar. I was like, whoa. She is the founder of Fostering Hearts Foundation, which aids and supports the community with initiatives against domestic violence through events, community outreach, and volunteer work. Fostering Hearts' goal is to open a transitional home for survivors and victims of domestic violence. She's also the author of the I Am, 30 Affirmations to Reaffirm Your True Self, 7 Keys to Fulfilling Your Purpose, Becoming the Author Within, and co-author of I Am Mother's Edition. As a survivor, Paula assists others in their walk to finding purpose and colliding with their destiny. She provides daily motivation, coaching, empowerment events, and more. Paula is a huge supporter of many as she understands what it's like to be on the battlefield and have to walk alone. Wow. Thank you both so much for joining us. I would love to just give you both an opportunity to, beyond the bio that I just read, share with us a little bit about how you got into what it is you're doing and just kind of some of the day-to-day work that you do. If we can maybe start with Jenn.
Sure, sounds good. So I guess I came to this line of work several years ago now, after having my own experience with domestic violence. I had married my high school sweetheart when I was 18, and then after moving out to Colorado, we'd been married about 4 years. I initiated a divorce or a separation after just seeing some changes and some incompatibilities in the relationship. At the time, I didn't recognize it as domestic violence or abuse, but realized later that it had been very emotionally abusive. There had been a lot of power and control issues, jealousy, possessiveness, and things that didn't match, I guess, what my perspective of domestic violence was. And so at the time that I decided to initiate that separation, the abuse escalated to more physical violence and ultimately actually ended up in him attempting to kill me. And my best friend, who was with me at the time, was also attacked and didn't survive. So I guess after that experience, I really started looking at what I had been taught about domestic violence and what I hadn't been taught, and decided that I wanted to move into a line of work that would allow me to provide accurate education to other people around how to recognize domestic violence, and to really kind of break down some of the myths and misconceptions about what it looks like, and try to bring light to some of the more emotional abuse. So that's how I ended up here, and yeah, I have been really enjoying doing the work. Especially I did some prevention with high school students, and I think that was really meaningful to me because that was the age at which I got into this relationship. So that's what brought me here.
And that is pretty young. I would definitely love to get into that a little bit too, just that whole factor of, of age and what you're able to recognize. I mean, I know it's not specific to age, you know, really, but I think that's an important element to consider as well.
I think for people who don't have a lot of relationship history, a lot of background in dating, if we're not giving them accurate information, they don't really have anything else to go on except what they know.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. So from, as you can see, there's personal experience, there's professional experience here at the table. So I'm really grateful that the two of you are here to share. So Paula, could you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I first encountered domestic violence probably around the age of 19 or 20.
Okay.
Which is
same
technically
age range.
Right, which is technically teen dating. And like she said, you don't really know the signs. Nobody has really shown you anything. So when it became a point of family not supporting you, and it's like, okay, as long as you're with him, I don't want anything to do with you, and things like that. It got kind of interesting because, again, no relationship experience, no education on what to look for, no insight, no examples, things like that. And you're thinking, okay, this is okay. He's an older guy, let me just be quiet. Let me just do what needs to be done.
Yes.
And, the first time he put his hands on me, I had just had my first son by him. I haven't hit anybody in 5 years. You made me do this.
Whoa.
I said, oh,
wow.
Okay. And still not to have somebody to advocate. Then at this point now you're young, you're involved. You don't want to take it to anybody because now you're embarrassed because I didn't grow up around this.
Yeah.
This is not what I witnessed. So how do you find yourself in a situation like that? And that abuse went on for probably about 2 to 3 years before I just finally, one night I just laid in the bed for probably a couple of months to a year. I would just lay in the bed and say, Lord, if you just get me out of this, I promise you, I will do what I need to do to bring awareness and fight for those who don't have a voice until the day that you take my voice.
Wow.
And he definitely pulled me out of that situation. The day that it happened, it was nothing but him because we went to get an ultrasound. I was pregnant. By this time, I was getting ready to have my third, but my second by him. And we came from the doctor's office, and he said to me, I need a key to the house. What you need a key to the house for? You don't go anywhere. All you do is sit around and snort cocaine and get high and do all.
You don't need,
you don't need a key to the house. Well, I'm not going back to the house. Thank you. You just saved me. And he gets on we were on the bus. He gets on the bus and we get back to the apartment and I'm like, what? Just leave. Any other time, I was never able to get out the house. But this, because I stayed in the projects. So projects, deadbolts on the door and things like that. This particular day, this particular night, I got in the house, he slammed the door, and I said, oh, Lord, this is it. But I had just that 2-second window of opportunity to get out the door. And when I got out, I had an older lady that stayed up under me, and she told me, she said, baby girl, if you ever need me, just come down here and I got you.
Wow.
And it was that night that I was taken away from that situation, never to look back again.
Wow. That's and so I have so many questions for both of you because the one thing that everybody always wants to know was, were there signs? What were the signs? What were the things that that other people can maybe pay attention to that may clue them into what they may be getting themselves into. So I want to talk about a little bit of that, but first we're going to get into some trending topics.
Primary election. Lack of diversity. Gas prices.
Michael Black's trending topics.
Okay, so a couple of trending topics. Trending topics today is brought to you by Heavenly Helpers Assistance. Need assistance for yourself or for loved ones? Call on Heavenly Helpers Assistance. Uncompromising excellence. Commitment to care. Go to www.heavenlyhelpersassistance.com for more information. So 5 people have now been arrested in connection with a terrorist attack on a London subway by planting a bomb in one of the subway trains last week. And so this is an ongoing investigation. Natural events are happening, natural disasters, with the Mexico City experienced a 7.1 magnitude earthquake on Tuesday, and at least 255 people have been reported dead, with 1,000 people injured. That is huge. The quake struck 32 years to the day after another quake struck in the same area, killing thousands. Yeah. Jason Stokely, for those of you who've been following this case, former St. Louis police officer, was acquitted in the 2001 shooting death of Anthony Smith. 2001. It's a long time. Yes, and so this acquittal has led to days of protest. And finally, a new poll conducted in collaboration, this is kind of disturbing, with the University of Virginia Center for Politics, has found that while respondents by and large reject white supremacists and neo-Nazis, many actually share the same racial beliefs. So they reject the groups, but they still kind of embrace some of the beliefs, which is really interesting. But I don't think it's surprising. It's interesting, but it's not surprising, because there's a lot of things that are extreme that, on the outside we all say, oh, no, we reject that, that. But then when it comes down to what we really believe in the core of our hearts, there's some things that, we follow along with that we wouldn't tell the world that we would follow along with. So when we come back, we're going to break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the signs, and hopefully I can, learn a little bit more about their experiences. So we'll be right back on the Live Exchange.
There's a power you have within you, unlike any other. You can't explain it. It's just there. It drives you, compels you. You cannot ignore it. Do you feel it? It's that power that tells you you can do the absolute impossible. The power that tells you you're more than what you currently are. The power that tells you it's time. Launch. Move. Skyrocket your life with Rocket Sports One fitness gear. RocketSports-One.com.
1 in 7 Americans will struggle with addiction during their lifetime. Want to know how you can help? Go to heretolisten.com for tips and tools to help turn addiction around. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
Our freedom and security are made possible through the service and sacrifice of our military and first responders. The Gary Sinise Foundation provides many outreach programs supporting these brave men and women. Join us. Donate at GarySiniseFoundation.org.
Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and joining me today, we're talking about domestic violence, abuse, and intimate partner violence. And I'm joining me here in the studio is Paula Foster, and Jenn Doe is on the phone, and they both shared a bit of their stories and some of their experience about domestic violence. And one of the things that seems to be similar about your stories is that, you both recognize, okay, this is not a situation that this is not safe, this is not healthy, I want to get out of it. And one of the things that I've heard, Jenn, something you mentioned was the point at which it was time to leave is the point at which it got worse or it peaked. And that's what I hear. Is that what you've seen in the work that you've done, that this is the time that it gets worse, or does it just vary?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research and a lot of anecdotal information that says that the time of separation can be the most dangerous time. And because domestic violence is really rooted in power and control, it makes a lot of sense that once someone makes an attempt to separate from that abusive partner, then that person is going to kind of do whatever they can to try and regain that power and control that they had over them in the relationship. And so we do often see that escalate to increased violence. Arrests might happen at that point, protective order violations, and in some cases even homicides are known to occur more around that point.
Yeah, wow. And which unfortunately, as you mentioned, for those of us who are just joining us, was part of the case in your situation.
Yeah.
That it escalated to that point. Wow. So for both of you, either one of you who want to chime in on this, what kind of things did you see and that made you think, this is not, I know you said that he backhanded you, Paula, one day. Did this come suddenly? I mean, were there signs that led up to the abuse?
Not at all. It was sudden. Like, when it happened, I'm just like, oh, wait, did that really just happen? Like, you're in a state of shock because there were no signs, no yelling, no arguing. Only thing I knew was that my mom couldn't stand him. But being that young, it's like, she tripping. She doesn't want to see me with anybody or, whatever. I used to tell my mom she was a negative Nancy because she always pointed out the bad or something in people. So, you dismiss it when it's the routine that you're used to seeing.
Right.
So when I got with him that I can remember, there were no signs. That was the very first time, and I was so shocked when it happened.
And what about you, Jenn?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking back, there were some signs, but they tended to be more subtle things. I talked a little about, like, jealousy and possessiveness, but that didn't necessarily stand out as something that would lead me to believe that, homicide was in the future or an attempt at homicide.
Right.
So I think yeah, it was more of the subtle things. And we often hear, and I think is often the case, is that these abusive types tend to be very charming, tend to be really well liked, and so all of my friends and family knew him and loved him, and it was very unexpected in that way. But that's part of the dynamics and the kind of act that they put on.
Right. Wow. And so, and just if you want to hear, you put it. I just realized Paula doesn't have headphones on, so she may not be able to hear what you're saying. So the other question that I was going to ask is because you talked about the the age and some of the things that we may not recognize because we're younger, right. And we have very little relationship experience at 18, 19, 20. Is age often a factor when it comes to, Jenn, I don't know what the age difference is with you. Paula indicated that there was a significant age difference between her and her situation.
He was probably he's actually about 10 and a half years older than me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like I said, you coming fresh out of high school. My father passed when I was 11. Mm-hmm. I have an older brother, but he was away with military and things like that. So it's like, who shows you, who teaches you, who equips you for what's to come.
Right.
So I would definitely say, especially with him being that much older than me, you've been out here for a little while. So
right.
and typically an abuser, they know what to look for in their victims. I know, knowing that now, but I was a little homebody little girl that was just trying to spread her wings, who liked older guys, and his particular at that point in my life. So yeah, that age factor does play a huge difference, especially when you're younger. The older you get, you kind of be like, wait a minute, no, but when you're younger, because you don't have that experience, and if you don't have people pouring into you, then you're blindsided by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenn, did you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, there wasn't so much of an age difference. He was 2 years older than me, but I was 14 when we started dating, so I was very young. It was definitely my first relationship, his as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I was pretty young and naive and didn't really know what to look for. And research also, I think, says that like 18 to 24 is where we see the highest rates of domestic violence. Although it can certainly impact people at any age.
That's one thing I definitely did not know. And, one thing I want to touch on is jealousy. You had mentioned that when you see, that sometimes jealousy can be an indicator. And it's interesting because some people love jealousy. They feel like, well, if the person is jealous, they care about me. They love me more deeply, which to me seems to be a bit of a dangerous mindset, to have. Whether you are the recipient of jealousy or you are the jealous one.
Right.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but we're gonna go to break. And so when we come back, hopefully I will remember to touch on jealousy because I would like to talk about that when we come back. Stay with us.
So I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Ms. Lombardi once said that it's hard to be aggressive when you're confused. Some of us think that taking our lives to the next level, both personally and professionally, is a confusing and complicated process. Guess what? It's not, and I can prove it. My book, Truisms, will show you how living your life by rules that are so self-evident and obvious, you'll say, I knew that. This powerful yet short, detailed bestseller is on sale right now, under $10. Go to michaelmcfadden.com. That's michaelmcfadden.com, and let Truisms help you to the next level.
If you're looking for that ratchet, you're in the wrong place. It's the nation's urban internet station, Sensation Station Network.
In the interest of science.
All right, so the science today, we're going to be looking at intimate partner violence, and Jenn mentioned that actually earlier in the show, that this is one of the areas that she specializes in, or that she focuses in on quite a bit. There's a study here that comes from the Archives of Women's Mental Health, and the title is Recent Intimate Partner Violence as a Prenatal Predictor of Maternal Depression in the First Year Postpartum Among Latinas. So what the study basically looked at, it examined what are the indicators that somebody will experience postpartum depression.
Okay.
And so we hear about it, we don't know a whole lot about it, and
Right.
so that was one of the issues that I definitely wanted to bring to the table today, so we can get a better understanding of what can trigger postpartum depression. And for those of you who are not familiar with postpartum depression, this is an actual period of distress, the traditional symptoms of depression associated with the birth of a child. And so the impact is feeling a sense of numbness and not wanting to do, not feeling that maternal instinct,
right.
just kind of being in a state of numbness, really, and deep depression. And so what's unique about postpartum is that it can be completely associated with the child and not wanting to have any connection or anything to do with the child, not consciously. It's just
Right.
it's just something that's going on. So what was found here is that postpartum, so they looked at postpartum depression, and they looked at it at 3 months, 7 months, and 13 months after birth. And what they found was that, 4 of the 12 prenatal predictors basically show that these are some of the things that cause it. So here are the 4. Prenatal depression, so if somebody was depressed before the baby was born, that was an indicator of postpartum. Recent intimate partner violence exposure. Wow. So if there was some kind of abuse happening, that can lead to postpartum depression. A lack of social support, so not having people around you to support you. Like Paula said, she had somebody downstairs who said, if you ever need me, come to me.
Right.
So not having that can lead to postpartum depression. And then the last one was non-intimate partner violence trauma history. So just some other form of trauma that's
Right.
associated with something else that's happened. So for the 4, again, is prenatal depression, recent intimate partner violence, lack of social support, and other forms of trauma. So for intimate partner violence to be one of those indicators of postpartum, now we're looking at how this has an impact on the next generation to come.
Right.
Even before the child even has a chance, she may have left the abuser,
Right.
but she now has postpartum depression, which can have an impact on the child. And so this is a very serious thing. It doesn't even have to be an ongoing experience of violence that happens. It says recent intimate partner violence. So it
Right.
could have been the one and only time that it happened, but it was prior to that child being born. And with it being recent, it can definitely cause postpartum depression.
Right.
So I'm gonna stop talking and give you two the opportunity if you have any responses or thoughts about that at all.
Well, I was actually pregnant with my youngest one when I was being abused. So not only was I being abused after our first child together, but I was actually being abused during the pregnancy of the second one, literally running for my life.
Wow.
Because it was during that second child's, when I was pregnant with him, that I went to the store to pick up a crib, because now you're talking 3 kids all under the age of 3 or 4. We need another bed.
Yeah.
And I came back, and in a joking manner, I said, well, you're sitting up here with your friends having fun, and I'm out here 5-6 months pregnant picking up heavy stuff. And I was joking because I had other people with me. I wasn't doing any manual labor, not knowing that he had been sitting in the house literally getting high while I was gone. And that led to him going into the kitchen, finding the biggest butcher knife that he could. And I literally was running down this small project hallway into a bedroom, closed the door, and he literally took the knife and stabbed it through the door. And had I been a quarter of an inch to the left, he would have stabbed me in my spine.
Wow.
And so those statistics are, like you said, it passes on to the next generation. So when that particular child came out and he's just as bubbly as ever. Like, he's full of life, full of energy, and I made a promise. I said I will never do anything to dummy him down, because statistically, he should be a zombie. He should be affected by everything that his mom was dealing with, the stress, the anger, the rejection, the sadness, all of that. But he came out just as bubbly. He's actually more caring than some people that I know that are adults.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm sure, like I said, that was almost 13 years ago, but there was a part of me that shut down.
Yeah.
Because you look at that child and you resent it, because you're like, you got here because somebody chose to put their hands on me. And like you said, it's not intentional, but it's the subconscious thing that causes you just to black out and be like, you know what, I don't want to be bothered with this.
Yeah, and that's pretty serious. Jen, have you seen cases like this?
I mean, I know, especially in doing the work that I did with the Denver Domestic Violence Fatality Review Committee, pregnancy is one of the major warning signs, even a lethality factor for domestic violence-related homicides. And domestic violence is one of the leading causes of death for pregnant women. So there's definitely some connection where, you have an abusive person who, abusers tend to have some narcissistic characteristics, and the world kind of revolves around them. And so when a baby comes into the picture or is coming into the picture and attention is being put toward that, that can tend to set off their abusive tendencies as well. And I think one of the other factors is that domestic, and especially some of the emotional abuse tactics, really are geared toward breaking down someone's self-esteem, kind of breaking down even their sense of self. And so a lot of women, when they do come out of abusive relationships, it's like they don't even know who they are. They've devoted so much of their time to trying to manage the abuse and manage the relationship and worry about the other person that they lose themselves. And so I could certainly see how that could play into something like postpartum depression, where now you have this baby you're supposed to connect with when really you're struggling to even connect with yourself.
Wow, that's so well said. And this brings me to a quote. You mentioned self-esteem, and I was going to bring this up later, but you just brought it up now. And it was on, Oprah said the quote, but I think she was quoting somebody else. I think she was quoting Naomi Wolf, and basically what she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but when mothers instill self-esteem into their daughters, they immunize them against unhealthy and abusive relationships. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that. I'll read it again. When mothers instill self-esteem into their daughters, and this is by having strong self-esteem themselves and modeling that, they immunize them against unhealthy and abusive relationships. What do you think?
I would probably say that could be true. Because when you think of immunization, it's to prevent something. So if I know that I came from a situation because of my low self-esteem, but I have a daughter. So if and I'm always telling her, you're beautiful, you don't have to take this, and different things to help boost her self-esteem, even with her being in high school and some of the things that she experiences, it can immunize them, but sometimes they battle their own self-esteem. So you can pump them up to an extent and help their self-esteem be off the roof, but it can set them up to not be abused. But at the same token, if they're still feeling some type of way, like I hear what mom is saying, but that's mama, she's supposed to say it.
Nothing's foolproof.
Nothing's foolproof, right?
Yeah, what do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when I think about teenagers and younger people being impacted, I mean, that's a time in your life where you're really, going through that adolescent development and don't necessarily have a sense of self. So I think that can be, a vulnerability to have lower self-esteem, and to help and build people up and encourage them, especially at those younger ages, to figure out what they want and figure out who they are before diving into a relationship can be really beneficial. But I would also say that, low self-esteem is not always going to be present, that someone can be very confident and have very high self-esteem. And when I was younger, I certainly saw myself as a very strong, confident young woman. And so you can still be impacted by this issue, even if you're doing great and you feel great about everything in your life, right? This is something that I don't know that you can necessarily build immunity to, other than just kind of learning to recognize the warning signs and knowing what to do and where to reach out if you start to see those things.
I think that's such an important point, because we like to put people in boxes, and we like to say, well, if this person was abused, then they obviously have low self-esteem, or they obviously came from a rough home, or they, and so I think it's really important for us to understand that we cannot put people in boxes in these particular situations. And I agree that it may, self-esteem may help us more quickly recognize, more quickly get out of the situation, more quickly, feel uncomfortable, because this is not what I was used to. But even in those cases, I know myself growing up, my parents pumped me up big time. I mean, and still, 18, ended up with somebody who was very unhealthy, I mean, never abusive to the point of actually physically putting his hands on me, but I know it would have happened. I know that when you're same situation, pregnant, I was pregnant, chased down an apartment complex, anybody who's willing to do that, it can go another level. So I get it completely, and I just want us to be careful about putting people in boxes and making assumptions, so we're going to get into the balance challenge.
Keeping your balance with Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela.
Okay, so this week's balance challenge is for you to be an ally. So many times people remain silent about domestic violence because they believe that they have to handle the situation alone. While we may not be aware of any current instances of domestic violence with the people we love, sometimes it's a good idea to remind the people you love and care about that they can come to you if you ever need to talk about any safety concerns that they have with their current relationships. So this week, I challenge you to tell 3 people, male or female, that you are a listening ear if they ever need to talk, that if they ever feel unsafe in their relationships, that even though you're not an expert, you can be a friend. Perhaps even establishing a safe word that can be used between the two of you in the event of an emergency situation, even if the likelihood for a situation seems to be slim to you. Develop an emergency plan together and become each other's ally. So one of my best childhood friends and I established a word that we would say. We would call each other up, and if I won't say the word on the air, because if I get in a relationship and I say the word, he'll be like, I know what that is. But we have a word, and it's a completely random word. But if we call each other and we say the word, then we know, okay, I need to get help for her. So your challenge this week is to establish that with at least 3 people, become an ally for at least 3 people in your life, and establish an understanding together about how you will be a source of support for each other. So that's your homework this week. We'll be right back on the Live Exchange.
JBT 700 Miami Circle 30324. It's not a chain, it's a chain reaction. Invest $49 a month at a real gym. For more info, go to facebook.com/Jeans Body Tech.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change, called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college. My name is Charles, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
There's a power you have within you, unlike any other. You can't explain it. It's just there. It drives you, compels you. You cannot ignore it. Do you feel it? It's that power that tells you you can do the absolute impossible. The power that tells you you're more than what you currently are. The power that tells you it's time. Launch. Move. Skyrocket your life with Rocket Sports One fitness gear. RocketSports-One.com.
And so a new American industry has been born.
Sensation Station Network.
All right, right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and by the way, I have to let you know that the Balance Challenge, which is to become an ally for somebody over the next week, is brought to you by BBLA Cosmetics. Breathe Beauty LA, the cosmetic company that's responsible for the look on my face. Check them out at www.breathebeautyla.com. So there's so much to, even with the postpartum depression that I was mentioning earlier, there's 3 different ways that postpartum depression plays out, and I just wanted to make sure that I covered that I talked about that, because it may not, look like it. It may not, there's so many different ways that people, that it, manifest it. And so, but one of the things, and I actually, there's 3 different ways that it can be triggered. That's what I should say. So there's biological triggers, psychological, and social. And so some of the biological triggers can be, prior history, with, it's kind of, your mother had postpartum and grandmother, and so it just kind of tends to be a thing in the family. A change of hormones, sleep deprivation, breastfeeding high-risk babies. Those are some biological. Some psychological, perfectionism. I want to do everything right. I can't be, I can't mess up. Wanting to be in control, poor maternal relationship, so poor relationship with your mother, body image. And then, and I'm not reading them all, but then there's also the social aspects, which is a lack of social support, having a lack of structure in your life, multiple losses like financial losses, jobs, friendship, even a loss of pregnancy, poor relationship with partner, isolation. So some of these things can lead to, postpartum depression. And so just wanted to, make sure that we, got some of those things out. Yeah. So one of the, I wanted to give out some statistics, and I know Jenn mentioned earlier, which is interesting because it's on my sheet here, but females ages 18 to 24 and 25 to 34, which is interesting, generally experience the highest rates of intimate partner violence. This doesn't give us any indication of why, so I would love to just, do either of you have any idea why this age range tends to be the age where this happens?
I would say, especially for 18 to 24, it just goes back to lack of relationship experience, lack of,
we did talk about that, yeah.
Lack of knowing what to look for, lack of knowing what a healthy relationship looks like, especially in today's society when you have a lot of young girls and guys that are being raised in single parent homes and they never get the other side of it. Even if mom is doing her best, mom can't teach you everything. Sometimes you need that dad there. Even for the girls, you need that dad there to say, look here, if that joker put his hands on you, this is what you need to do.
And to see an example of a healthy relationship playing out is, I would think, is key as well.
Right. And then if you think about 18 to 24, they're going off to college. So it's a brand new experience. And you have guys that are looking for the freshmen on campus, the sophomores, taking them to parties. They don't know what to experience. If that parent hasn't sat down and said, look, when you get to college, don't you take it. If you take a drink from somebody, you make sure you carry it with you. Don't leave it sit. So if they haven't had the proper education and enlightenment, then they kind of fall into a situation that, of course, they had no idea they would fall into.
Right.
So.
Right. Jen, I heard you trying to chime in.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a stage in life where, you're trying new things, new experiences, and you just don't have anything to kind of compare to. And I did advocacy for domestic violence and sexual assault and stalking on a college campus, and was actually really surprised also to see how ripe college campuses are for human trafficking. And it often will actually start and has some connections to domestic violence, because it often starts with someone dating, and that's how they kind of recruit you and bring you into it, and then eventually start to force prostitution and other things like that. But it often starts looking like a romantic relationship.
Oh, that's scary.
So that's an important connection too.
Wow, that's a connection I hadn't even thought of, and that's really scary.
Yeah.
What concerns me also is, having worked on college campuses and being a part of student affairs initiatives and things like that to support our students on campus, that's an issue that doesn't really get addressed from the standpoint of how we as professionals can protect or inform and educate our students. And so that's something that I really think we need to put some emphasis on.
Definitely.
So we're going to be right back. If you have any questions you'd like to add to this conversation, give us a call, 678-613-5857. 678-613-5857. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Viola Davis. Did you know that 1 in 5 kids in America struggle with hunger? Growing up, I was one of those kids, but we can solve this. When we make breakfast happen for kids in our neighborhood, we have the power to end childhood hunger, create bigger, brighter school days, and healthier minds and bodies. Go to hungeris.org and lend your time or your voice.
We're hungry for more.
A message from the Albertsons Companies Foundation and the Entertainment Industry Foundation.
JBT 700 Miami Circle 30324. It's not a chain, it's a chain reaction. Invest $49 a month at a real gym. For more info, go to facebook.com/Jeans Body Tech.
Major key alert. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at GetSchooled.com. Brought to you by Get Schooled and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, and father of 5. I'm also an expert on drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids, and there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org.
And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ed Council.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and today we're talking about abuse and domestic violence. And we have 2 guests joining us today. We have Paula Foster, who's here in studio, and we have Jenn Doe, who's calling in from Colorado. And they both have some really great information for us that I hope can be useful for quite a few people after this show. Just wanting to give some more statistics. We don't always include statistics that involve men when it comes to domestic violence, and I think that it's important for us to consider and to realize that this is not something that just impacts women, but men as well. On average, 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. And so this is more than 12 million women and men over the course of a year.
That's a lot.
Whew.
That's a lot.
Nearly 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men in the United States has experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by a partner and report a related impact on their functioning. So the one thing about these statistics is that these are what we know of.
Right.
This is what's reported. Right. And the difference here is saying 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men. And I've ventured to say that it's probably a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah. And especially on the male side, because men don't tend to report violence as they're less likely than women are for a number of reasons. And another statistic, nearly 15% of women and 4% of men have been injured as a result of intimate partner violence. That includes rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So this goes on and on, but it's important for you to understand that this is not just women,
not at all,
and that it is across the board. So according to and I will get the article, the Mayo Clinic. If you're in an abusive situation, you might recognize this pattern. So here's patterns, and I want to talk to each of you about these patterns. Number 1, your abuser threatens violence. Your abuser strikes you. Your abuser apologizes, promises to change, and offers gifts. And then the cycle repeats. Is this a pretty consistent cycle according to what you each have experienced and or seen with the people that you've worked with?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Like I said, when the first time I was hit. It was like, no, I won't do it again. Now, if I can just be real, he didn't have money to shower me with gifts, but other than that, yes, it's always, I won't do this again. I'm sorry. I was upset about something else, but why am I taking the hit for what you're dealing with? You can't handle my strength, so why am I taking the hit for it? And then, yes, the cycle starts itself back over again. It may not be that day, it may not be that week, but you can guarantee all it takes is one thing to trigger, and you may never really know what it is. Finally, I did see what his triggers were, but yeah, other than that, that definitely are the cycle that it goes through.
Yeah, Jenn?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a cycle. I mean, there tends to be kind of a phase in the relationship where tension builds before an abusive incident, whether that's physical or not, some sort of a blow up, and then there might be some kind of period of respite where everything seems okay. But that cycle can also change over the course of a relationship. It can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't always work in exactly that same, I guess, direction, and can change over the life of a relationship. But I think that this is something that is a pattern, right? It's not something that happens just once.
Right.
And so there often is a cycle. But that cycle for one relationship, it could be, days in between abusive incidents. It could even be months or years.
Wow.
So a lot of people who are in abusive relationships talk about having, been in the honeymoon period more than they were in the abusive period. And that's often what keeps people there, is that the abuse isn't happening constantly. It's not 24/7, that it's coming sporadically. And if the rest of the time feels pretty good, then that is how people kind of stay in the relationship. Or, as Paula has talked about, feel like, well, maybe if there's something that if I change my behavior, then it will stop this from happening. When in fact, it's really about that other person who's being abusive, and not what their victim or the person being abused is doing.
Can an abuser be healed? Can you go through some kind of process of counseling where the relationship can be saved, where the person no longer abuses? Has this happened in your experiences?
I think that it's very difficult once a pattern of abuse has started in a relationship to reverse that. I have seen cases where maybe someone, after an abusive relationship ends, that abusive person may kind of see the light and see that their ways of doing things were wrong, or maybe they do go through some sort of treatment or counseling, and in the future they may approach relationships differently and be able to change that. But I think that once the pattern is established in that given relationship, I haven't often seen it turn back around. What in fact it tends to escalate and become more severe and even more frequent as the relationship goes on. But I guess anything is possible, and in order to do this work and to be especially on the prevention side, we have to kind of hang on to at least some level of faith that people can change.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are going to get into love letters.
Love Notes with Dr. Pamela.
Love Notes, that is. And Love Notes is brought to you by Wine Crawl Atlanta. Join us on Saturday, September 30th for a private wine tour via luxury transportation. I will be there. We will begin our journey at the W Hotel in Midtown, and will then board a luxury coach to visit wine, bars, and restaurants around the city, mixing, mingling, and tasting as we go. Go to Wine Crawl Atlanta on Facebook to register today. So today's love note comes from somebody who just labeled themselves as isolated. They didn't sign their name. Dear Dr. Pamela, and by the way, this is for either of you, Paula and Jenn, to respond to if you feel that you can give a good answer here. Dear Dr. Pamela, I grew up with a lot of abuse in my home, to the point where I have no faith that I can have a good relationship of my own. I've watched my parents attack each other, so I intentionally stay away from relationships and avoid getting too close to anyone because I don't want that kind of life. It's well known that these cycles of abuse get passed down from one generation to another. Is there anything I can do to not fall into this cycle? Signed, Isolated. Either of you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, the first thing that comes to me is that let your environment be your example. So if you don't want to fall into that cycle, you've seen enough of it where you can pretty much point it out. And it just should have given you the strength and the shield to be able to say, okay, he's not acting right, or she's not acting right. Let me not do this, because we're not necessarily intended to spend our lives isolated and alone, but I can understand where that's all you've seen. So now you don't know who to trust and things like that, but you have to allow yourself the opportunity to love and be loved. And it may take some counseling. It may take some time of journaling and letting it all out, some crying and things like that, but don't block yourself from a happy future because of the tremendous past that you've seen, or the hurtful past and the broken past. Don't let that brokenness pass on to you and allow you to end up old and miserable, as they say, because love is out there.
Yeah.
And so we have to open ourselves up. Forgive those that you saw being abused and things like that. Forgive yourself for not wanting to love.
Right.
And then open yourself up to be loved. And it may take one relationship, two relationships, but don't just immediately block yourself from the world and the dating prospect altogether, because it's out there.
Yeah, and I want to also emphasize that this person didn't indicate whether their fear was of being an abuser or of being abused, which I think is important to consider as well. We have to go to break, but I really want to get Jenn's response to this as well. So Jenn, when we come back, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this as well, okay? All right, we'll be right back on the Live Exchange.
Well, you'll see what happens. Sensation Station Network.
Welcome to the Live Exchange. We are at the top of the second hour. That went really, really fast.
Really
I know I
fast,
say that every
yeah.
week, but it does just go so fast. And so we are talking about domestic violence. Today I'm joined by two fighters, advocates, experts on domestic violence who are here to share their stories and shed light on this important issue. So on the phone we have Ms. Jenn Doe. She's a trainer for the Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance. And in the studio we have Paula Foster, author and founder of Fostering Hearts Foundation, and they've got a lot to contribute today. And so we just heard we've received a letter from somebody who has experienced abuse in their home or witnessed abuse of their parents in the home, and is concerned that they may end up in a relationship that involves abuse as well. So they've kind of isolated themselves as a result. And so Jenn, I would love to hear your response to this as well.
Sure. I think that people often think that, children who witness abuse may not be as impacted by it as children who were abused themselves. But actually there's a lot that happens, in the brain, and you still have a trauma response. So I think it's totally normal for people who grow up in abusive households to have these sorts of concerns and difficulty with intimacy or relationships. So I absolutely think going through some kind of counseling, processing your experience and what it means is really helpful in figuring out how to move forward. You could grow up to be an abuser, or you could grow up to make decisions to change that cycle and not have that happen in your life. So I think a lot of it is about choice and how we choose to either go against what we've seen or continue what we've seen. But it can be really difficult to get into relationships when you have these kinds of trust issues. Even as a survivor myself, I would love to say that was the only abusive relationship I was ever in, but I definitely had other relationships after where there were maybe not, the abuse looked different, but there were definitely warning signs. I was able to see them sooner because I knew which was great, but I still fell into those patterns until I found a healthy relationship. And once I realized what that could feel like, it definitely changed kind of my standards and what I looked for. So I would encourage anyone who grew up in an abusive relationship to reach out and get some support around that and do some processing, and then really stop and think about what are the things that you want in a relationship. What are you looking for in a partner? And as Paula said, keep your heart open. You know, don't just shy away altogether from being in a relationship, but also keep in mind what you saw, be aware of those things. And I think recognizing it and acknowledging that you did grow up in an abusive relationship and you know what that looks like is one of the first steps to being able to break that cycle.
Well, I think what's one of the things that could be going on, and this is just a guess, but sometimes it's easier to isolate yourself than it is to face what you've been through and what you've witnessed growing up. And so, because I'm a runner, so I can see myself, you know, running from relationships and running from having to sit down with a counselor and look this person in the face and tell them the things that happened growing up. You know, and so sometimes it's easier to just build a wall around yourself. And so what I hear both of you saying is, you know, it's to go through it, get through that, and go to the counseling and address it head on, so that you can, because there's more that you can experience beyond what you've seen. So
definitely.
So another thing that you brought up, Jen, that I want to mention is the way that abuse plays out. You know, when we think of abuse, we think of black eyes, you know, people being chased through apartment complexes, pregnant, you know, things like that. But there's a lot of different ways that abuse plays out. And so, you know, I had a situation once where a guy threw something right by my face against the wall, and it didn't hit me. And the sentiment was, well, it wasn't going to hit you, you know. But the fact is that it was intimidating, you know, and it was intended to scare me. It was intended to get me in line, to get me to understand that there's anger here and I need to get myself together. So a lot of times, you know, whether or not you are actually hit, or, you know, there's a lot of different ways that it plays out. So you may be experiencing domestic violence if your partner calls you names, insults you or puts you down, prevents you from going to work or school, stops you from seeing family members or friends, tries to control how you spend money, where you go and what you wear. Ladies, we do this, you know, so this is what I'm saying. It's not gender specific. Gets angry when drinking alcohol, using drugs, threatens you with violence or a weapon, hits, kicks, slaps, those are the ones that are obvious, forces you to have sex or engage in sexual acts, and blames you for his or her violent behavior, as you mentioned, or tells you that you deserve it. So we're going to go to break, but I wanted to make sure you understood that. Give us a call or text us if you have questions or you want to get involved in this conversation. 678-613-5857, or leave us a comment on the Facebook Live broadcast. We'll be right back.
When it comes to saving money, don't act like a baby.
Goo goo gaga.
Be the boss and make a budget.
I'm the boss, baby.
You're not the boss of me.
I am the boss of you.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Need a little help?
Aren't you going to do any work?
I'm very busy delegating.
Create a personalized savings plan.
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
And get other tools and tips at feedthepig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
Your health is at stake. Diabetes.
Diabetes, cancer, heart disease? Yeah, right. I'm too young to worry about all of that. Or am I? Millions of Americans are being diagnosed younger and younger each year. I guess it's really no surprise with how much our lifestyles have changed. More fried fast foods, extreme stress from work. 176 million people in North America consume unhealthy drinks. I know I do. Who could be next? My brother? My sister? Me? I think it's time to make a difference, and so should you. Extreme X2O alkaline water, designed to cleanse your body with just 2 simple steps. Shake and wait. Not only will it help clean your kidneys, liver, and intestines, but it also helps with weight loss and anti-aging. Sign me up today. AbundantLifeMovement.com. You know, I better go call my sister to let her know about this. You should really tell a friend too, because is it really gonna kill you to shake and wait?
1 in 7 Americans will struggle with addiction during their lifetime. Want to know how you can help? Go to heretolisten.com for tips and tools to help turn addiction around. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council.
Deliberate dumbing down.
Dumb down society. Deliberate dumbing down of America.
Dumb down public. Why would they do this?
Sensation Station Network. Radio, not dumbed down.
Primary election. Lack of diversity. Gas prices.
Michael Jackson. Trending topics.
All right, so trending this week, you know, what's really interesting, we do have when we look at the NFL, I've talked quite a bit about Kaepernick and his protesting of the national anthem for the purpose of bringing attention to police officers shooting black men. So, but there's a little spin to the story with this one. Is TV ratings for the NFL has been down this season so far, and the ratings have been down as low as 13%. Wow, quite a bit. Now, it's all not about the protest. Now, there's some of it I'm sure has a lot to do with that. People are protesting the NFL. The other thing is, though, many reasons are because of people cutting the cable cord. I'm one of them. People are now live streaming. So they're live streaming hurricane coverage. They're live streaming the football games. They're live streaming. And I am so in that crowd. Last night I was sitting up watching hurricane coverage via Facebook. Not Facebook. Facebook too. But YouTube, and so I cut cable quite a while ago, and I think it's interesting that has actually made such a significant difference on the ratings for NFL. Wow,
they can't track it that way.
No, and so that's fascinating. It also seems Kevin Hart, we're bringing Kevin Hart up, and for those of you, he recently got married, and it's not even been a year yet, I don't think, there was speculations that he was cheating on his pregnant wife, and he emphatically said, no, I'm not. Right. Well, this week, he comes out to say, okay, yes, I was, and that's because the other woman had threatened to pay, or threatened to put it out there, or he should pay. Which is another form of abuse, by the way. Yep. Controlling money. Yes. So he's basically come out to say that, yes, I did do this, and I'm terrible, and I need to get help, and I don't know if he said he needs to get help, but he said he needs to stop his behavior. So very interesting. Hurricane Maria tore through Puerto Rico on Wednesday. It's expected to next hit the Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos, the southeast Bahamas, before making a turn to the East Coast. So these hurricanes, this has been a season. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. So keep your prayers out there for those people being affected and their families. And then I think that's pretty much it that's it. That's all we're going to talk about. So we were talking about what domestic violence can look like, and after I kind of read the list, and things like basically intimidation and I think name calling was on the list. It's something I can't remember. I don't have the list right in front of me, but but anything that is, let me see. I want to see exactly what it says. Yeah, calls you names, insults you, or puts you down. Right. So, so it's not just name calling. We're talking about things that try to diminish your humanity and who you are as a person. Yep. And so after I read the list, you're like, wow, that sounds like what I experienced.
Even after he was gone.
Yeah.
He was still trying to diminish who I was, and it worked for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I had to cut all ties. So
yes, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing that I don't think people understand is, again, we put people in boxes and we try to say it's this kind of person who would abuse.
Right.
It's this kind of person who would be abused, and this is what abuse looks like.
Right.
It really isn't that simple.
Not that simple at all.
Yeah. So, okay. So I want to get into domestic violence against men. Now, I brought it up, but I really didn't get into it because, one of my colleagues, academic colleagues, Hassan Johnson, I've had him on the show a couple of times, okay. Dr. Hassan Johnson, and he's talked about, he's very passionate about the issue of domestic violence against men because he thinks that it's really sensationalized in the media. We think it's funny or empowering or well within our rights when a woman will have a dramatic scene in the movie where he's cheated or he said something inappropriate and she slaps him across the face, and we cheer, we think, yay, she got him, or she told him, or and so we celebrate that. We say, oh, you go, girl. But what happens when the reverse happens? If big screen man slaps a woman across the face, we are angry,
mad.
And then I've heard the arguments, well, he can do more physical damage to a woman than a woman can do to a man. Is that always true? And does the level of physical damage really matter when there can be some psychological damage as well?
Nope.
So I'm going to what do you all think about that?
I'll let Jenn go first.
Jenn, she gave you a title.
Okay, sure. Definitely domestic violence can happen toward men by women, also by other men. So domestic violence also happens in same-sex relationships.
Absolutely.
I think when it's a woman who's perpetrating abuse on a man, sometimes the abuse does look different. It may be more of the psychological and emotional abuse rather than physical abuse, just based on, biological differences. I know in the state of Colorado, we're seeing an increase in the number of women being arrested in domestic violence calls, and that partly has to do with our laws and mandatory arrests and things like that. But, it's something that we're looking at, and there are also cases where it's self-defense or retaliatory, where a woman becomes violent toward a man after having been abused by that person. And so it's more of a self-defense thing. But I think that always when we're talking about domestic violence, we have to keep in mind that it's a pattern of behavior, that it's not just that one-time reactionary thing. It's something that goes on over time and does have a lot of those components of emotional and psychological abuse happening, because if someone were abusive, on the first date, you probably would not have a second date with them. And so in any abusive situation, you have to keep in mind that there's going to be probably an underlying basis in that emotional abuse, whether or not there ever is physical abuse. And I think that would go for, both men and women who are abusive.
So emotional abuse, psychological abuse, these are not things that are reportable, right? Is it just on you to just leave the relationship? Is that pretty much the case when nothing?
You can report them. It's definitely harder to prosecute, but things like harassment, and I know at least in Colorado, within our statutes and our laws around what is considered domestic violence, things like harassment, those also are considered to be domestic violence. Stalking, happening in the context of domestic violence, where there may not be actual violence occurring, but there are still some prosecutable crimes, and in some cases there are also other remedies. So maybe you can't take a criminal route, but there are civil solutions like protection orders. We're seeing, I think, more victims actually sue their perpetrators for damages when they maybe don't have a case that can be handled criminally.
And that's what Colorado, because I'm thinking that's probably not nationwide. But gosh, that's wow. That's pretty good. What a deterrent too. Hopefully, not that, I'm not naive enough to think that, because you can be sued, they're not going to abuse. But I think that's an excellent thing to have on the books. We're going to come right back. I wanted to get into technology and abuse. You mentioned stalking. I know that there are ways that abuse happens via social media. And so I wanted to get into that a little bit. So stay with us. We're going to be right back. Give us a call, 678-613-5857. You can also text that number, 678-613-5857, and we will be right back.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
Coming to Tampa Bay, I said we want to win a Super Bowl, and I believe we will.
From IamSecond.com.
We came close, but never really did win that championship.
Former NFL head coach Tony Dungy.
At the end of my 6th year, I was fired, and it was one of the biggest disappointments of my life. Next year, I'm in Indianapolis, get to the playoffs, but get knocked out again. And for the next couple of years, it's the same thing. Everyone is saying Colts are never going to win one. And I did wonder, why didn't it pan out the way I thought it would? But I determined that I had to have Christ first, and that everything else came below that, including my own desires. The next year, that ended up being our year to go to the Super Bowl and win it. And it was a wonderful feeling. Every decision I make, I'm going to make it through the lens of Jesus Christ, and He'd guide us to that ultimate victory. I'm Tony Dungy, and I am second.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
In the interest of science, science.
Okay, so for the second hour, the research that we're going to talk about is Stockholm Syndrome. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because in light of the R. Kelly case in Atlanta, for those of you who are not familiar with this case, he has been accused of keeping women in his house against their will in sort of a sex ring type of situation. Right. The women, some of them have come out to say, no, I wanted to be here. And I think there's at least one case in which a woman said, I really didn't want to be there. And so Stockholm Syndrome is basically what happens when a captor, somebody who's captured, develops feelings of admiration for their captor, and they defend them and they stand up for them. So why is this related to domestic violence? Well, basically, there's an article here it's in the journal called Violence and Victims, and it's looking at identifying Stockholm Syndrome reactions in young dating women, and just looking at measuring the extent to which they experience that in their dating situation. Okay. So we don't always, Stockholm Syndrome is not always, you've been kidnapped by the mafia and they've held you. Right. It can be just this entrapment that you have within the relationship. You can't leave the house. You can't interact with friends and family and that kind of thing. And so there are three different terms that people tend to get the meanings. They all kind of attribute it to Stockholm Syndrome. Okay. I want to make sure that we understand what it is. It is when men and women are placed in a situation where they no longer have any control over their fate. They feel intense fear of physical harm, and they believe that all control is in the hands of their tormentor. A strategy for survival can result, which can develop into a psychological response that can include sympathy and support for their captive's plight. Okay. So again, it doesn't necessarily say that they were kidnapped. It says that they no longer have control over their fate. They feel intense fear or physical harm. So the other one, psychological damage, is marked by depression, low self-esteem, and loss of sense of self. They separate that out from Stockholm Syndrome, psychological damage. And the other one is love dependence. And this is typified by the feeling that one cannot survive without one's partner's love. And you can see that is something that can be manifested in either the abuser or the person being abused. Where did Stockholm Syndrome get its name? It was derived from a 1973 bank robbery in Stockholm, Sweden, where 4 hostages were held for 6 days. Throughout their imprisonment and while in harm's way, each hostage seemed to defend the actions of the robbers and even appeared to rebuke efforts by the government to rescue them. Months after their ordeal had ended, the hostages continued to exhibit loyalty to their captors to the point of refusing to testify against them, as well as helping the criminals raise funds for legal representation. And it's a common survival mechanism. This is the response of hostages has intrigued researchers, and they basically have determined that this kind of response is common as a survival mechanism. So I put all that out there to look at this from the standpoint of somebody who has been abused or is in an abusive situation, and they are defending the person who is who's doing, is creating the problem.
Right.
Question for you both. Have you witnessed this? Have you seen this happen? And is that person ready to get help? Are there things that need to happen before a person of this mindset can actually get helped?
Yeah, because you can't, when you become so dependent upon your abuser, someone has to take you. No matter what they do no wrong. Well, yeah, he hits me, but I know he loves me. He's just trying to protect me and keep me in line. Clearly, you don't see that there's a problem, that you're grown and he's not your dad. And it just really takes them. Someone has to be able to break through that mindset, because a lot of times that's what it is. It's a mindset that, yeah, he's doing wrong, but he still loves me. Those two don't go hand in hand. You don't do those things to someone that you love and you want to see the best for. That's a controlling mechanism. So they have to be able to see it from a different light. So it takes a deep dive into breaking that mindset, which can take anywhere from months to years, just depending on how deep it's become.
Right.
So,
Jenn, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, as we talked about with the cycle of abuse, the abuse isn't 24/7. So there are times when your abuser is kind to you, even vulnerable, where you see them as a kind, emotional person. Oftentimes, I think people will also use excuses about that someone's background is oh, they're having a really hard time at work right now, or they just had such a rough time growing up.
Right.
They're working through those things as ways to kind of excuse the abuse.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with Paula. I mean, it has to be that person's decision to choose to leave a relationship that's abusive, and as people on the outside as supporters, it can be difficult to see someone you care about, to know that the relationship that they're in is not healthy or is abusive, and that they continue going back or refuse to leave. And there are statistics that say it takes 7 times of a victim leaving on average before they leave the situation for good. So there are often times where they'll leave and then go back for whatever reason, emotional reasons, financial reasons. So as people on the outside, I think we have to keep all those things in mind, that this is complicated stuff, and that if we go to someone we care about and just try to tell them what to do or place judgment on them, they're probably going to alienate from us even more, because they're already in a relationship where somebody is controlling them. They don't want another person telling them what to do, and they don't necessarily see it the way that you do.
Right. Wow. I mean, that's really powerful, and I think that this tends to be the time when people lose their network of support, because you're talking about 7 different times, and maybe after the 3rd time they may stop sharing that this abuse happened again, and because everybody's sick of hearing about it. Well, if you're not going to leave, I don't want to hear about it.
That happens more often than people understand.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, if you are a friend, relative, or whatever of someone that's being abused, do not shun them. Do not send them away. Do not stop being that listening ear. Anytime I have opportunity to talk to people, and I just let them know, I don't care if it takes them 10,000 times. You need to be that one person that they can come to 10,000 times and say, this is what's going on, X, Y, Z. I want to leave, but I'm scared. And then if they come to you and, like, say they move in and you help them get away and they go back, don't just wash your hands of them. Understand that it's a cycle that has to be broken, and it's a light bulb that has to go off before they say, you know what, I'm done.
They have to do that on their own. Okay, well, we're going to go to break. One of the things the question that comes to mind, and I'll pose it now so you can think about it when we come back, is how do the loved ones protect themselves? Because it's a dangerous situation for everyone, and so some people back away so that they don't endanger themselves and their families as well. So something to think about. How do the supporters protect themselves? We'll be right back.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You've accidentally cut your daughter's bangs unevenly. Do you A, line things up a centimeter from her hairline?
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man.
No. Sweatbands are so hot right now. Everyone's wearing them. Like that basketball player and that other basketball player.
B, get spiritual.
Mom, where did all the mirrors go?
A reflection could never capture our true selves.
Huh?
Beauty is within.
C, look on the bright side.
Less time blow drying, more time texting.
Or D, show empathy.
Mom, you really don't have
Ta-da! Twinsies!
I kinda love it. As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Our freedom and security are made possible through the service and sacrifice of our military and first responders. The Gary Sinise Foundation provides many outreach programs supporting these brave men and women. Join us. Donate at GarySiniseFoundation.org.
Deliberate dumbing down.
Dumb down society. Deliberate dumbing down of America.
Dumb down public. Why would they do this? Sensation Station Network. Radio, not dumb down.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and we are talking about domestic violence. I have Paula Foster here in the studio with me, and Jenn Doe is on the phone. And so we are looking at domestic violence. And the last question I asked before we went to break is, we were talking about supporters and how people don't, they give up. They're just kind of like, okay, you're not going to leave. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. I'm out. But for those who stay the course with the person in their lives, how do you protect yourself as a supporter of somebody who you know is dealing with domestic violence? Do you guys have any strategies for that? Is there a way to make sure that you are going to be safe?
That's a good question. I would probably say there's a way. There's a thin line between protecting yourself and protecting that person, even if it means that you have to call the police on their behalf because you don't know to the extent what that abuser is going to do. Or if you got the big brother that was in the military who suffered from PTSD anyway, and he's looking for a way to let his anger out. I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe send him over there, or someone that you know is not going to be concerned, but if you feel like, I don't want to endanger my life, my children's lives, or whatever the case may be, there's a way to be there without being there.
Without inserting.
And it may say, well, you know what, Dr. Pam, I know that you're in this relationship, But for my safety, when you need me, call me with that secret word. I'll get the police on the phone. If you need me, call me with that secret word, and I'll send my cousin or something like that.
Right.
But it still shows that you're supportive, but at the same time protecting your space and protecting your family and your future.
Right, right. Do you have anything to add, Jen?
I think those are great strategies. I think often people, if they do like leave an abusive relationship, they may go and stay with friends or family, and so I think being cautious around that too. That is putting those other people potentially in danger because the abuse doesn't necessarily stop just because someone leaves. So keeping that in mind, and if there are kids in the situation, I mean, kind of coming up with an exit strategy if something does go wrong, something, the same way that we do fire drills and things like that, and figure out what is the safe exit. I mean, this is something that you can do in a similar way. But I think what Paula had to say around, being able to have that safe word and know that that's someone who you can call, but they're not necessarily going to directly intervene in the situation, but they can, call police or send someone in for help or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's so important because a lot of times people don't want to get involved because of they're afraid. But it's important to know that there are ways to get involved without inserting yourself and endangering yourself as well. And of course, everything is, things are not predictable, so you never really know what can happen. As part of the article on Stockholm Syndrome, I read the concept of traumatic entrapment, and that's just kind of that idea that you are held, you're against your will, your power is taken away. There's another concept here that talks about how anxiety and fear are essential to survival. So if you are feeling anxiety and fear in your situation and you're not sure if it's abusive or not, that anxiety and that fear is kicking in for a reason. It could be completely irrational, but it's something that you have to pay attention to and at least explore, to find out, is there something here that I really need to be paying attention to? Fear, while it can be very positive and while it can be a lifesaver, fear can also be associated with freezing and, just kind of not doing anything and just kind of being a deer in headlights. And so, really important that the fear that is felt is that you're able to mobilize with it. So if you're in a state of being frozen, sometimes just reaching out to somebody and saying, here's where I am. I don't even know. I can't, but I just got to tell you where I am. And I do have people like that in my life that I can reach out to and just say, I'm just stuck.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Let me tell you where my head is right now. Maybe you can help mobilize me so that,
So that's, and then when I talk about the balance challenge being ally for somebody, that's what I mean. Being somebody that they can call and say, you know what? I don't have the answers right now. I may not even need you to give me answers. I just need you to listen. Yes. So the last thing I wanted to cover is the whole idea of creating a safety plan, getting out, I love the idea. I can't remember which one of you said it, but it was just the idea of having like an emergency exit, like a fire drill, and just, have a plan. And leaving an abuser can be dangerous. This is what I mentioned earlier. So consider taking these precautions. And this comes again from Mayo Clinic. Call a domestic violence hotline for advice. Make the call at a safe time when the abuser is not around, or from a friend's house or another safe location. Pack an emergency bag that includes items you'll need when you leave, such as extra clothes and keys. Leave the bag in a safe place. Keep important personal papers, money, prescription medications handy so that you can take them with you on short notice. I think this is something people don't think about. But, the trunk of your car may not even be the best place. Somebody's house. Is this a strategy that either of you have heard about before?
Yes, it's a strategy that I wish I would have had. I mean, thankfully, I was able to get out because it was my place. So it was just a matter of getting him out. But you do have those who have become so financially dependent upon their abuser, so emotionally, he has control to everything. So I definitely agree, because a lot of times when you leave that situation, you're leaving scared because you don't know if he's going to pop up at any given turn while you're trying to run. So I would definitely say, especially those important papers, birth certificates, social security cards, bank statements, driver's license, all of that need to be in a very safe place. For me, I won't tell y'all where my safe place is, but I can guarantee you that if I can't find it at my house, it's at the other location.
Right.
And it pays, especially if you're moving or you have to get out of somewhere in a rush. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, where is this? Oh my God, where is that? You already know that it's there, especially when you're leaving an abusive relationship. You may not have time to look for anything. So you may tear the house up just trying to get the important essentials of day-to-day living. And it's like the last thing you need to be concerned about is paperwork.
Because when you're frantic, I mean, I had a friend in an abusive situation, and I got the phone call, he's here, oh my God, I'm hiding in the bathroom, please call 911.
Right.
I'm on the other side of town, and I'm shaking. I can't even dial 911. So I can't even imagine what the nerves must be like in the midst of a situation. Now you're trying to pull together paperwork, and that's yeah. Okay, so know exactly, and the last piece I didn't mention was know exactly where you're going to go, and how you're going to get there.
Right.
Protect your communication and location. This is a little bit about, how technology can get involved here. An abuser can use technology to monitor your phone and your online communication and to track your physical location. This has happened to me before. If you're concerned for your safety, seek help to maintain your privacy. So use your phones cautiously. Use your home computer cautiously. Remove GPS devices from your vehicle. Check your vehicle for GPS devices. Frequently change your email password and clear your viewing history. Wow, all of those things when I was in a certain relationship had been violated. All of those things. So that's very interesting. Anything to add to this, Jen?
Yeah, I think I really, appreciated the tip on just calling a domestic violence hotline. And I think, when it comes to technology, this can be really helpful too. Even if somebody isn't necessarily seeking shelter, they can still call or go to a local program and talk with an advocate who can help them with this safety planning. Friends and family can also make that call or go in and talk to somebody to get advice. So I think using those resources is so important, because I know when I worked at a domestic violence shelter, we got lots of calls from concerned friends or family members that just wanted advice on even how to start the conversation. Those advocates are also, kept very much up to date on what some of these new technological things are to look out for and how to safety plan around those things. So use your local resources to help with that safety plan. And definitely there's lots around technology that we have to keep in mind.
Speaking of local resources, I happen to know, again, from my scholar friend who focuses on domestic violence against men, in the state of Texas, they have a couple of shelters for men.
Okay.
Which is really interesting.
That's
And
very
yes, because they're really, again, men are intimidated from reporting because they are made to think that you're a man, you should be able to protect yourself. But there are actually, if you're in the state of Texas, it'd be something to look into if that is a need. There are shelters there for men. We're going to go to break, and we will be right back on the Live Exchange.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
I want to be a warm place on a
I
cold
want to be
day.
a football
I want
stadium.
to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
My savings are gone.
Okay, where were they last?
Here, right before I spent them on the vacation to Aruba.
Weird. Not weird. Not saving now means no money later. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online, you can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
This is big business. This is the American West. Station Network. See ya.
Keeping your balance with Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela.
All right, so this week's Balance Challenge, I'm going to send you off with a challenge, and that challenge is to connect with 2 or 3 of your friends, family members, loved ones, your mother, your father, somebody in your life who you care about, and become an ally for them. We don't necessarily always know who has our back because we just haven't talked about it with people, and we assume that nobody wants to hear about our woes and our issues. Well, make yourself somebody who's willing to listen to somebody's woes and somebody's issues. You may not even need to. They may not even need to call on you, but if you just let them know, look, I have your back. Let's create a safe word. Let's have a safety plan. If I'm in a relationship or you're in a relationship, let's make sure we have each other's back, and here's how we're going to do it. And so create a plan that will work for you and the loved one in your life. So your challenge this week is to do exactly that. Wait, I need to know what that signal was about. Are we done? Okay. I gotta be candid here. So we'll be right back.
Everybody successful lays a blueprint out. You laid the blueprint out. I stayed true to my dreams, and by doing that, eventually it came true.
A lot of times, it's like in life, right? Life brings like drama, and you got to deal with this person, and then you funky relationship here, and all these things. You try and just kind of balance them out as best I can.
Make a choice, right? You just decide what it's going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to do it. Just decide. And then from that point, the universe is going to get out your way.
Everybody wants to be a beast until it's time to do what real beasts do.
Unleash your beast. Write your history.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I got to let you know that this week's show is brought to you by Red Door Consulting. Red Door Consulting, a boutique management consulting firm that prides itself as an innovative leader in brand development. Let Red Door Consulting upgrade you and your business today. Visit them at reddoorconsulting8.com. That's the number 8, reddoorconsulting8.com. And guess who is responsible for the look on my face today? Yes, that is BBLA Cosmetics. Check them out. They do full service facials and skincare and makeup. It's their own line of makeup. Great stuff. www.breathebeautyla.com. BBLA, breathebeautyla.com. So just to kind of wrap things up, we've got, so much to cover. And I'm hoping that what we were able to cover is going to be helpful to somebody. But the last thing I want to say is in an emergency, of course, in an emergency, you want to call 911 or your local emergency number. But seek help from someone you trust. Turn to a friend, relative, neighbor. Call the domestic violence hotline. That's 800-799-SAFE. 800-799-SAFE. This hotline provides crisis intervention and referrals to resources. You can seek help from your health care provider, a counselor or mental health center, and even a local court. Your district court can help you obtain a restraining order that legally mandates the abuser to stay away from you or face arrest. And this staying away from you also includes social media.
Right.
So they cannot have any kind of way to intimidate you at all. Do either of you have any final words, or both of you? I know you both do. So what would be your final words of wisdom for our listeners today? We'll start with Jenn.
Yeah, I would say, try to learn as much as you can about this issue. Find out what your local resources are. Most states have a statewide domestic violence coalition or an organization like COVA where I work. So you can, find those online. We have a online resource directory, and a lot of local domestic violence programs offer awareness raising and educational events. Oftentimes they'll have lengthy 30 to 40 hour trainings that potential volunteers can go through. So think about volunteering, getting involved, or often they will allow the public to attend those or certain sessions just to learn more about the issue. I think the more people are educated and aware of this issue, the more that awareness and education gets spread to other people, and that's how we can address this issue.
Absolutely. Okay, Paula?
I would say if anything has touched you today, or if you've experienced this, or you know someone that has, be like you said on the challenge, be their ally. And because I'm such a huge advocate for our youth, we gotta stop. As adults, we have to come out of this world of isolation.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. If you see something that's not going right in any use, we have to get back to that village.
Yes.
So even if it means volunteering in a school or talking to your kids, but let's get out here and reach our youth, because they're being affected more than we know.
Right.
Teen dating violence is at an all-time high, and it starts as early as 11.
Wow.
So if you begin to notice changes in your niece, your nephew, your daughter, your son, whatever the case may be, take the time. Don't say, oh, they're just being a teenager. Oh, that's just their hormones. Everything is not to blame on their hormones. Everything is not to blame on them being a teenager. Take a minute to take a deeper dive and see what's going on, and be there for our kids.
Okay.
And also volunteering, and just like she said, doing your research, knowing what's going on, and just partnering with others to bring awareness, because it is an epidemic that stays so under the carpet.
Right.
And it's time for that. It's time for it to stop.
Yes, absolutely. Well, just in final, and I'll make sure that I post how to find each of you. You're Paula. You're at the Fostering Farts. Wow.
Fostering
Hearts. Wow, I bet that's a new one.
Right.
Foundation, Fostering Hearts Foundation.
Right.
And Jenn, you are with the Colorado. Can you say it again so I don't butcher it?
The Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance, or COVA for short.
Got it. Okay. Well, in closing, abuse breeds shame, fear, lasting trauma, and cycles of ongoing abuse. I think Dr. Brene Brown said it best when she said that silence is the breeding ground for shame, and shame only perpetuates more silence and more toxic behaviors. But there are those who heal. There are those who escape. There are those who get help, and there are those who stop abusing. And it is my hope that today's conversation can lead into a step in the right direction for someone who needs help. One life healed can impact everyone in that person's circle of influence. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Live Exchange, where we exchange compelling dialogue around love, politics, and intellect. Join us next Thursday from 11 to 1 right here on the Sensation Station, where I will be joined by fitness gurus who have transformed their lives through the transformation of their bodies. That's Dr. Shauna Payne-Gold, Miss Cassandra Roll, and Mr. Lorenzo Butler. I'm Dr. Pamela, and remember, love yourself to life, dance confidently in the dark, and dream wildly unrealistic dreams. Have a wonderful week.
Deliberate dumbing down.
Dumb down society.
Deliberate dumbing down of America.
Dumb down public. Why would they do this?
Sensation Station Network. Radio, not dumbed down.
Hey, woke up and